Okay. Good morning. Sorry I'm running a little bit late, but believe it or not, it gets a little hectic these last few days. Y'all bow with me. Gracious Heavenly Father, again we come asking you to forgive us of our sins, to say thank you for all the things that you do for us, for being there for us, the gifts, the blessings, for your Son Jesus, through whom we get your love, mercy, forgiveness, your kindness, and your grace. Guide us and lead us. Let us do things that are pleasing in your sight. And thank you for another day. Amen. Okay. Short and quick, Mr. Hill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Let me interrupt you. Y'all call out your bill number, where it is on the blue sheet, or what under which class that we've got it, and make the questions from the committee short and quick too. Go.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You'll find my bill under the modified structure rule, page 3, House Bill number 495. It's about a third of the way down on the page. And what this bill does, and it's a state properties bill, today it takes about an average of 580 days for the state of Georgia to sell or convey a parcel of property. And this bill addresses the process and streamlines it in many ways without, and I think this is most important, without losing our legislative oversight and control. And under this new system, the House and the Senate property committees can meet out of session up to twice a year to work on a list of recommended properties to be conveyed that will come up the next session. And they will have the notification to everybody, including the individual members of the House or the Senate who is impacted by the conveyance. It covers anything within their district. And that is now done by registered mail or overnight mail and electronic means. So the individual legislators have a full 30 days to look at it, rather than being cramped into the time that they have now during session and to object to it. And any legislator that objects to that conveyance, it'll be automatically pulled. And then we'll review the entire list at the first of the next session and do a full approval on that. And after that, the commission will be able to sell any of those approved properties up to $500,000 on their own without a secondary approval. And that's it in a nutshell, sir.
A nutshell?
That's a big nutshell.
No kidding. I would remind the rest of you on the wall that wasn't no nutshell. Any questions of Mr. Hill? No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Who have I got next? Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Chairman Meadows, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. I have House Bill 176. It's located on page 2 under modified structure. This is legislation that we actually took back to Energy, Utilities, and Telecom on Thursday, worked on Thursday and Friday, made some changes to it, took out any, this has to do with cell tower permitting. Took out some language that might have been confusing as far as local zoning, but no local zoning issues in this bill at all. It does not make no restrictions, takes no authority, land use, or zoning away from your local governing authorities. Clarifies the permitting process for new towers, sets up a shot clock for existing towers for equipment of 90 days. That's already actually in code. This bill says that for modifying or putting new equipment on existing towers, although the 90 days is already in code, it just says that if they don't make a decision within 90 days, it will be considered approved. And for new towers, if they don't make a decision local governing authority in 150 days. They can make a decision one way or the other. But if they don't make a decision, it will be considered to be approved.
Mr. Willard.
Thank you. Chairman, I had a chance to look at the bill this weekend because of some concerns that my jurisdictions up in North Fulton have. And I don't read it the same as you're saying about the new existing towers. Look on, if you would, page 2. When you talk about applications, we have removed what will be applications that apply to the requirements for new towers, as far as being sure everything's in place before the 150 days starts running. And then when you look at that compared to what we have now, as far as 150 days on the back, it talks about Section B is where it would apply, and Section B speaks of the application only applying for what we call the modified type changes. I'm concerned we may have overlooked the ability to have any control over what would be a new tower to be set up for permitting. No, sir.
I don't. If I may, I don't think that is correct. What we took out the language on page 2 because that's in definitions. We had definitions there, and the language of the definition that's in code actually is not a definition. It's actually would have the force of law saying that that's the way what would be included. If you look on page 4, lines 126 and 127, that spells out what information. There is no limit on the information compared to what's in code today, what they can ask for as far as information for the permit.
But I'm saying I'm not sure that you have it covered with a new type tower having the oversight for this period of time, as well as the requirements for the running of the 150 days until they have a properly completed application in place.
Well, it gives them 100. I mean, I'm not sure I understand, because it gives them the whole 150 days, and they can require at the time of the application any of the information that they currently ask for, and they have 30 days to then ask for more information.
So, Section E applies to modification or correlation. It does not apply to a new tower.
I mean, could you tell me a line or part of the bill I can look at?
Look at Section E. You're talking about the requirements of that language of line 126, 127 says within 30 days the date of application for modification or correlation.
Mr. Setzler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to my friend from Cobb, a couple questions I wanted to ask that as I've dug into this. Two, if I could. The first one, with respect to co-location. How does this affect a city's ability to require that towers be co-located on a single site as opposed to be spread around multiple sites?
Well, as far as co-locations, it doesn't change anything. There's no changes. In the original language of the bill, there was some additional language related to co-locations. Currently, in this substitute, the only change in anything regarding co-locations or the modifications is that if they don't make a decision within 90 days, they're actually required in current code to make a decision within 90 days. But this says if they don't do that, if they don't follow the law, which is already there, if they don't do that, then after 90 days, if they haven't decided one way or the other, then it will be considered to be approved. It's just some enforcement language going in for co-locations and modifications.
One further quick question. With respect to the package being submitted to the cities, is it required under this version that a full package, full submittal be made that's deemed complete by the city, or would this allow that shot clock to begin running before a full package had been submitted?
Well, they can require the full package to be submitted when the application goes in. They can require it at any time. But they have 30 days. I mean, the law says they have 30 days to ask for additional information. And then if for whatever reason, I mean, here's the thing, if for whatever reason they messed up, and I'm not saying anything bad about the local governing authority, but if they screwed up and they just didn't ask for everything, they still can deny the permit. They still can do it. They can still say yes or no. But they can ask for the the information that they need. There's nothing in this bill that would have any intention whatsoever of keeping them from getting the information. I'm sure the wireless industry wants them to have all the information. These are huge investments by the wireless industry, and they don't want something going in and then having some kind of problem in court or whatever.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McCall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 3, third from the bottom, House Bill 304 under structured rule. This is not asking for a new free port. It's just clarifying what's in the law already, because there's an assessor or 3 that have a huge lack of intelligence on what exactly fertilizer is. .304, page 3, third from the bottom.
Ms. Pro Tem.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure this would not in any way affect state revenues. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. It's already in law. It's just clarifying so some of these thick-headed folks will understand what the law says. Thank you.
You mind telling me how you really feel about those folks? Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm bringing you 2 bills today. First is House Bill 400 on the first page under modified open rule, right halfway down, about 3/4 way down. Basically, this is one of these population bills. We're trying to repeal all these. It's going to take a long time to do it. They're very significant in that they're all unconstitutional. Basically, what this bill does is it limits somebody within a population bracket of having a bonded indebtedness hearing or referendum only in November. What the general law does now is say they can have them anytime they want to. It gives this just repeals this, gives the local governments the right to have their referendums whenever they want to have them. It's already under general law, and that's basically what the bill does. I'll stand for any questions. It just repeals it.
Any questions? Thank you. What's the other one?
House Bill 52, top of the page on page 1. Basically, this is legislation on how the Adjutant General is appointed. I think that this is a good bill. It doesn't limit the governor, and it doesn't do anything to the people that are presently in office. This is not retroactive in any way or shape or form. It just states that the general officer will be the only one that could be considered to be a adjutant general, and that's from all 50 states, both branches of the Air Force and the Army. Any general officer could be considered. That's what the bill does.
What number was that again?
52 on the first page, sir. I'm sorry. First page under modified open.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on the second page, very last bill is 403. And what it does is it gives the city of Valdosta the option to levy a sales tax for sewer and water projects similar to the way Atlanta did it several years ago. It's narrowly drawn, and to my knowledge, it only applies to the city of Valdosta.
Ms. Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you show where it would only apply to Valdosta?
Certainly. On page 2 of the bill, lines 33 through 37, municipality means a municipality that provides water and sewer service among other municipal services, and which is, at the time of the call for the referendum, subject to an order of a federal or state agency or court to improve its water and sewer infrastructure and is located within a disaster area designated by the President of the United States. We meet all of those criteria, the city does. whereas I don't believe any other city in the state meets that criteria.
My next question is, what is the total sales tax levied in the city of in Valdosta now? Is it 7%?
It is.
So this would take them to 8%?
Well, not exactly. We had a SPLOST vote back in November that failed. Therefore, we will be back at 6%. And our goal is to call up that SPLOST again and for it to pass, hopefully. And if it does not, this is the last resort to get this wastewater plant moved from where it is currently, where it continues to get flooded. It was flooded again this past week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lindsay.
Just real briefly, I don't want to gloss over what you said. You guys are underneath a federal court mandate to do this. So one way or the other, the taxpayers...
A state consent order right now, but we're waiting on the federal consent order too.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two bills on the calendar. The first one is House Bill 382. It's on page 2, third from the bottom. This is at the request of school boards. They have an issue regarding if they allow a YMCA or Boys and Girls Club or some other organization to use their facilities after hours. They want to make sure that this is not going to impact their sovereign immunity. And so this bill just basically requires that there be a joint use agreement in writing and that the nonprofit entity have $1 million worth of liability coverage. And this has been requested by both the school boards and by the nonprofits.
Questions? Next one.
All right, the next one is House Bill 197 is structured, page 3, 6 from the bottom. This is an update on the Forest Land Protection Act. It's got several different things in it that sort of bring it into harmony with CUVA, the conservation use. But the primary thing that this bill does is it deals with some abuses that are happening right now. It provides for some penalties for willful abuse by county tax assessors and valuations. And it also provides that in the event that less than 200 acres is sold, that it will remain into the covenant until the expiration of the covenant, and then it either has to meet all the qualifications or not.
Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, I was trying to get over here. You said, in other words, if you have a covenant, and I'm trying to catch the last part about the under 200 acres.
Currently, the law says that if I sell my property and I retain less than 200 acres, that remaining part remains in the covenant till the end of the covenant. It doesn't deal with if I sell less than 200 acres. And usually, like if you have 100 and I sell you 100 and both of them qualify, then you can group it to make that under current law.
As long as it's contiguous.
Right. But under this, it says if I sell something that turns out to be 195 acres, rather than violating the covenant, I can maintain it in the covenant until it expires. And then at the time of its expiration, it either has to meet the qualifications or it can't be re-signed up.
So we can sell less or or still hold less than 200 and stay in the covenant under your provisions?
Until the end of the current covenant, and then it has to meet the qualifications.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any others? No more. Go.
Thank you.
Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 2, I think it's the third from the top, House Bill 482. In a nutshell, this allows retiring corrections and parole officers with 20 years of experience or more to keep their service weapon as part of their retirement. Similar to what public safety, DNR, and Department of Revenue officers already are able to do. I can tell you more about it if you'd like, but I
don't want to hear you
less is better.
I don't want to hear more about it. Bye. Mr. Bruce.
Good morning. I'm asking for House Bill 150, page 1. about 5 items down. This is a bipartisan effort to stop the exploitation of people having their mugshots taken down from public sites, even though they have not been convicted of anything, and then loaded onto private sites that people charge to remove, sometimes in excess of $8,000 to remove these mugshots. That's it.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 1, number 6 down, House Bill 189. This bill requires the Department of Natural Resources to notify governing authorities before closing a state park, historic site, or recreations. This may seem familiar to you. It made it almost to the finish line last year, but it didn't on the last night. We ran out of time.
Questions? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee. On page 2, second one down from the top, House Bill 475. This bill is an enabling legislation which will allow the Commissioner of Driver Services to negotiate and enter into reciprocity agreements with certain nations. This came to the attention of the Georgia Department of Economic Development because lots of business interests were having trouble getting driver's license here in the zones that need it.
Questions? Thank you. Mr. Carson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 bills on page 2, House Bill 104. It's about in the middle. House Bill 104, this is the annual vehicle tag bill from the Motor Vehicles Committee. It basically makes the Appalachian Trail Conservancy tag a revenue sharing tag. Creates an Atlanta Braves Foundation tag for philanthropic purposes, and third, it has some cleanup language in regard to veterans plates in Aid Atlanta.
Next one.
Next bill is just a few lines down on, it's House Bill 240, also on page 2. This allows clinical fellows providing speech therapy services to our Medicaid recipients. It allows the clinical fellows to receive Medicaid reimbursement from the state just as a full speech pathologist would. This is a practice that's done in 39 other states, including 4 of our 5 border states. We did receive a fiscal note about it, Mr. Chairman. No fiscal impact because we can't determine that there are more underserved population. This is just basically increasing the number of providers, not the number of recipients.
No questions. Thank you. Mr. Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 490, second page, 4th down. This seeks to do 2 things. This is a libraries association have come to me, and as well as the ACCG. It would create 2 divisions in the libraries: certified employees and non-certified employees. Currently, they're all lumped together. The second thing it would do would take the insurance requirement mandated at 17.5 hours of work per week up to 30 for the non-certified employees.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 bills. The first one is on the second page under modified open, House Resolution 502. It's a joint resolution that Bill Riley helped draft, majority and minority leadership support to establish a joint study commission to study our mental health in the state and bring forward recommendations at the end of the year for consideration for the following legislative year.
Next one.
The next one is under a modified structure rule on the third page, House Bill 497, about a third of the way down, House Bill 497. This is a department bill of DNR. It streamlines the boat registration process. Worked with the Lake Lanier Association and also the Marine Owner Association with this bill. They're satisfied with the bill and would ask for your consideration.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 3, structured rule, third one down, House Bill 159. It strengthens Georgia's long-held public policy on protecting private property by prohibiting the use of our tax bills as a debt collection tool for tack-on fees.
Any questions? Thank you. Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Today I bring you House Bill 389 under modified rules located on page 1, 3/4 of the way down. This bill amends Title 33 of the Georgia Code relating to insurance. It will sunset mandates previously required and will be replaced by a much more consumer-friendly, cost-effective process. HB 389 is bipartisan and has been vetted by the Insurance Department, major carriers, and consumer advocates. With that, Mr. Chairman, I ask for your favorable consideration of the bill.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Colonel. Mr. Hitchens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to you today House Bill 366. It's under modified structure rule, about 3/4 of the way down on page 2. This is agency legislation, Peace Officer Standards Training Council, and essentially what it does is make some needed additions to their law that deal with testing, discipline, and training. And if you'll note on your desk, you should have an amendment that was requested by the Governor's Office, which changes the period. If you unsuccessfully attempt the initial examination to be a post-certified officer, it used to be that you had to wait 6 months to take the test again. This will change it to 30 days.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here with HB 289, which is right in the middle of the first page. What this bill looks to do is just to revise our state's Uniform Commercial Code consistent with some recommended changes by the Permanent Editorial Board of the UCC dealing with remittance transfers.
Questions? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nimmer.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring before you this morning on page 2 under modified structure, middle ways down, House Bill 276. This is the bill dealing with the reauthorization of the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund that is set to sunset this year. And then also, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I have another bill under structured rules, second from the bottom, House Bill 359. This is dealing with unclaimed properties in the Department of Revenue, enabling the Commissioner of the Department to deposit funds into the general fund.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Atwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen of the committee, I have 2 bills and a resolution in order of priority with this legislature. The first one is under the structured rule, page 3, and that being House Bill 164. And essentially what this bill does, it's an extension of the exemption on sales and use tax for engine and parts and equipment and that sort of thing, used in the maintenance and repair of aircraft not registered in the state of Georgia.
Questions? Next.
The second bill, Mr. Chairman, is on page 1, the second from the bottom, House Bill 458. Essentially what this does is change one thing on condominium associations, and that being the maximum allowable casualty insurance deductible imposed by the association from $2,500 to $5,000, allowing them to purchase cheaper insurance, being a benefit both to the association and to the individual members.
Questions? Thank you.
The last resolution, Mr. Chairman, is House Resolution 389 on page 3, right in the middle, under the modified structured rule, that essentially being an urging resolution to our delegation in Congress removing the $100 billion federal sales tax on health insurance requests that appeal under the Affordable Care Act.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Coomer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, asking for House Bill 188 on page 2 under modified structure. That is the Veterans Licensure Bill we discussed last week.
Any questions? Thank you. Next one.
And also, Mr. Chairman, I came today to ask for House Bill 372 under structured, but if you look at the bottom of page 3, it stops with 371. I checked with your office, and 372 is not on the yellow sheet either, so I don't know if maybe there was an inadvertent leaving off of page 4.
Bear with us. It's on the yellow sheet. It'll be more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was a Hope Grant bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
The Senate Rules Chairman's twin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring House Bill 381. It's halfway down the first page. This simply adds 3 ex officio members to the Department of Natural Resources Foundation that are also members of the Natural Resource Board.
Questions? Thank you. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm asking for a House Bill 486. It's actually the same exact language that we passed out of here. Excuse me, it's on the second page under modified structure, about 5 down. It's the same language we passed out of here in the update bill for DOT. Got over to the Senate, and I guess they believe they understand the Constitution better than we do, because they felt like that was not germane to the bill. So even though it's the same title, code section, and everything. So we've actually pulled it out and just got it back in a separate bill. I'd also, there's 2 other, Mr. Chairman, House Resolution 46, House Resolution 411. Both of those are the road naming bills and bridge dedications that are on there. And I'd also like to put my name beside HB 150 and HB 304, and I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What? Mr. Roberts, since I've got 9 things going on up here at the same time, would you give me those last 2 again?
HB 304 under structure rule, page 3, and actually HB 150 under modified open, number 5 down.
Ask me to repeat what the road naming is again.
Go do me the road naming again.
They're under modified structure, House Resolution 46 and House Resolution 411, right above structure rule. 411 is the one for the state patrol that were killed in the line of duty, and 46 is just the one with the members' road and bridge naming.
Okay, Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hughley is unable to be here this morning, but I wanted to ask for H.R. 73, which is on page 3, under modified structure. This is the bill that would provide the compensation for Mr. Latham Rydell. It's passed the House and the Senate. Changes were made in the Senate last year that sent it back on the last day, and it failed in the last 4 minutes of session. This is the last year this young man would be eligible for compensation, and I strongly urge that we move this bill. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Ramsey.
Page 3, Mr. Chairman, under modified structure, HB 487, bill to crack down on the illegal use of Class B adult redemption games, and in so doing, protect the lottery and the Hope Scholarship.
Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 2, House Resolution 218, 5th from the top of the page, 6th from the top of the page, pardon me. This is just simply encouraging superintendents to ask their teachers to provide instruction to the children on the Constitution. I would also like to place my name by House Bill 164.
The House Bill, which one, the last one?
164.
Okay. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to put my name beside House Bill 276 by Nimmer. It's in modified structure. And then in modified open, it's Hatchett's Bill 381. Thank you.
$381. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for on page 2 under modified structure towards the bottom, House Bill 282, which is the Municipal Broadband Act, and House Bill 393, which is the Georgia Workforce Investment Board, both under modified structure. And I'd also, the last one on modified open, page 2, I'd like to put my name beside HR 502. It is a non-per diem joint study committee.
Thank you. Mr. Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On third page, under structured rule, House Bill 69. This is a bill that will give protection to those that buy property at tax sales and then those properties are redeemed. On page 1, House Bill 215 deals with clerk of court and their duties. House Bill 245 deals with correcting a problem with the PSC not allowing people to take certain classes in college. And I'd also like to put my name next to House Bill 240 that's on the second page under modified structure. Thanks, sir.
Go. You did 215, and what was after that? Okay, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under structured rule, House Bill 193 for the food banks, health clinics, and prepared food sales tax exemption. Also like to put my name beside for Atlanta, Augusta, Columbus, and Savannah, House Bill 164. And also under modified structure, I'd like to ask for 213.
To what?
213. And Mr. Chairman, Mr. Peak is not back, so I'd like to, as a co-sponsor, ask to recommit House Bill 272.
You've heard a motion and a second to recommit 272. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Setzer.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to put my name by Representative Bruce's bill, HB 150, dealing with removal of false information from websites.
Mr. Weldon.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask for page 3, top of the page. It's under modified structured, House Bill 434. This just allows parties to lien as the parties have agreed. Then also on...
Let's stop with that one. I hate to be one. Tell me what that is.
It's where there's a construction on a work site, then the owner or the contractors have agreed to, they've got a contract for how they're going to do the construction. This bill will provide that the contractors can lien the property if there's a dispute about or non-payment by the owner or the general contractor. They can lien it for the amount that the parties have agreed to work do the work under the contract.
Okay. Mr. Willard. Oh, you got others. I'm sorry.
Yes. Also, House Bill 164. This just provides. This is Mr. Atwood's bill. I believe it's under structured rule. Fourth one down on page 3. This is a bill that provides incentive to keep aircraft industry here in Georgia. And also House Bill 458 and House Bill 475.
Mr. Willard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me ask for a bill that is Mr. Smyer's bill, but it's important. We've got 2 judgeships to create. This is House Bill 451, Chattahoochee, and the Oconee circuits. We've got to get this bill through to have those created. On my own bills, Mr. Chairman, first under modified structure rule, House Bill 1, which is the Uniform Forfeiture Procedure Act. On the first page, we have a couple of bills I want to ask for. First of all, under modified open, first page, second down, House Bill 78. This is a bill that is enhancing the penalties, criminal penalties for people who are physically or financially abuse elderly persons. It's been vetted and supported by numerous groups, including the prosecuting attorneys and GBI. The other bill I have, Your Honor, is House Bill 443. This is the Fulton County Magistrate Court bill. The only reason this is on here is a result of the fact there is a nonpartisan election to be set up for that position.
Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Willard, I received a number of calls this weekend about HB 443, raising concern that the current chief magistrate judge, basically asking why we wouldn't shift to nonpartisan election but allow the current chief magistrate judge to retain incumbency for that election. Can you speak to that?
She does. She would be able to run for the election of the position. Once this law becomes enacted, certainly she's qualified as anyone else would be to serve in that position.
Would she be the incumbent at the time of the election?
There is a provision in here that allows for the governor to make the initial appointment when her term comes to an end, assuming she's the logical one. The governor could appoint that person, and then she could also stand in for re-election.
Can you speak to why we're doing that? In previous bills, when we've shifted from partisan to nonpartisan elections, we've not required that the governor reappoint this sitting judge. This seems to be a fairly dramatic change from our previous practice for shifting to nonpartisan elections.
The others have all had elected judges in place already, and we don't have an elected judge in Fulton County. It's an appointed position by the state court judges, and we felt that since we're creating an elected position, to have it initially done as we would do with other judgeships that are created, have it done by election.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask for House Bill 189 on page 1 on the modified open rule.
Okay.
Also, I want to put my name beside House Bill 150 by Representative Bruce.
Okay. Ms. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for two bills on page 1. House Bill 78, Chairman Willard's bill. Elder abuse is rampant in the state, and we need to update our out-of-date laws. And on the second page, I would like to ask for, about halfway down, under modified structure, 240. These are highly trained individuals, and we pay them in certain settings, but not in other settings. And it won't increase what we're paying. Thank you very much.
Ms. Sheldon.
Mr. Chairman, I'd also like to ask for, put my name beside House Bill 240. That's on page 2, modified structure, and also ask for HR 170 is page 2, modified open. It's a joint study committee on Medicaid reform.
Wait a second. The last one, 107?
170.
107.
107, sorry. 107.
God, what a mess. Okay, Mr. Rice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask for HB 250 found on the third page under structured. It's just the provision that allows for the implementation of the excise tax that was created for energy under 386 last year. It's needed by the manufacturers, the energy providers, and the political subdivisions. Second bill I'd like to ask for is HB 463, which is a bill that streamlines the implementation of registration for international registration plan vehicles. These are large trucks in Georgia. It should mean a lot more registrations in Georgia for our truckers.
Mr. Cassis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Asking page 2 for House Bill 184, and if it would please the chairman and the committee to reclassify that bill under modified open rule. I would also like to put my name beside HB 159 on page 3.
The last one was what?
159.
Okay. Who have I got? Is it Peak? Nope.
No, you're not.
I'm sorry. Who's 16?
Who's got your button mashed?
One of y'all got a button mashed over there.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to put my name beside HB 461 and then also ask that HB 290 be recommitted to the Committee on Human Relations and Aging. It's on the yellow sheet.
On the yellow sheet, recommitted.
Which one?
What number is that?
290. It's on the yellow.
Don't. Okay. Mr. Powell. Anything else?
I'd also like to put my name beside HB 366, disciplining peace officers. Also, House Bill 497, Georgia Vote Safety Act.
Mr. Peak.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Shout out to Ron Stevens for taking care of me while I was gone. Thank you for that. I'd like to ask for Representative Atwood's bill, HB 164, and Representative Pack's bill, HB 475.
Mr. Parrish.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 1 at the very bottom, House Bill 461, this would just provide for a single administrator for dental services for the Medicaid program, should save the state some money.
Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask once again for House Bill 123, the Teacher and Parent Empowerment Act.
Mr. O'Neill.
I would like to put my name by House Bill 250, requested by Chairman Rice. That's a very technical measure, and it has to do with moving the collection of energy sales tax to dealers and the implementation of the new excise tax that replaces the, for local purposes, the tax on energy, the sales tax on energy used in manufacturing. That's part of the 386 updates, which we need to do. And also would like to move on House Bill 290 to recommit that to committee. It's on the yellow sheet, general calendar.
Okay, you've got to move to recommit 290 on the yellow sheet. Any opposed to that is recommitted? Okay. Mr. Smith.
I'd like to put my name beside House, it's 3 on the front page, House Bill 375, 389, and 458. And then on page 3, Representative Smyer's bill, House Bill 451, the judge positions.
Okay. Anyone else? Y'all bear with me a minute. Okay. Under modified open, HB 123. Any opposition? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? No. It's on. Modified open 215. Move. Any objections? It's on. Modified open 289. Move. Any objection? So, modified open HB 375. Any objection? So, modified open HB 381. Any objection? So, modified open HB 389. Any objection? So, modified open HB 400. Any objection? So, modified open HB 443. Any objection? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? It's on HB 458.
Move.
458 will put a hold on till tomorrow. Is that today's the first day that one's been out here, or have we done that one before?
It was on previously.
Okay.
Page 1. 458 on page 1.
Yeah. Second page, modified open, HB 475.
Move.
Any objections? Second page, HB 482, modified open. Any objection? Second page, modified open, HR 502. Any objections? Modified structure, HB1. Do I hear a move? Objections? Modified structure, HB 188.
Move.
Any objection?
Is there any way that could move to the floor modified open? There's an ongoing discussion about some potential friendly amendments to that. I wouldn't want the process to be closed down.
Which one is that?
188.
You've got a move to put 188 on modified open. Is there objection? Mr. Earhart, have you got a question? Your button's down. Okay, it's modified open. Okay, modified structure, HB 276. Any objection? So, modified structure, HB 323. Any objection? What? Oh, I'm sorry. It is. Look on your desk. There's about a AM 350321. Mr. Powell, would you like to speak to that amendment? All right, you've heard the explanation. Do I hear a move on the amendment? Any opposed to the amendment? Okay. On 323, we'll do it again. 323 as amended by AM 350321. Any opposed? So it's on as amended there.
Clarification, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, yes, sir.
I understand that the bill is going to the floor with an amendment, also going to the floor.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, on your desk you've got an amendment for 366, and it struck 6 months and it added 30 days. We'd left out the 30 days. Do I hear a motion? We have a motion. Anybody opposed? Okay. Under modified structure, HB 366 with amendment, it's on modified structure 382. Anybody opposed? It's on modified structure HB 393. Any opposition? Modified structure HB 451. Any objection? Modified structure HR 46. Any objection? It's on modified structure HR 389. Any objection? All those in favor signify by aye. Any opposed? Well, never mind. The ayes have it. I got the objection down, don't worry. Under modified structure, HR 411. Any objection? Okay, under structured. Yes, sir. Mr. O'Neill.
Could I make a motion on HB 451 to move that from modified structure to modified open?
On the judges?
Yes, sir, HB 451.
You want it on modified open? He's made a motion to move HB 451 from modified structure to modified open. We've got a motion and a second. Is there anybody opposed? Modified open it is. Where am I? Have I done 159? Okay, structured HB 159. Any opposed? So structured HB 164. Any opposed? So modified under structured HB 193. It's under structured HB 250. Any opposed? Under structured HB 304. Any opposed? Under structured HB 359. Let's get rid of those and we'll see if we got to come back.